This is proof that you are capable of improving the state of the world. The ego can be a source of endless mystery and metaphorical rabbit hole exploration. The ego has been talked about and discussed and argued over since the dawn of time. The ego is often associated with the devil, whose greatest trick was to convince us that he doesn't exist. It's not difficult to find arguments driven by egos to convince others that they don't have egos. We will take a different approach, a not so common approach. We believe that the ego is an instinct, a necessary instinct, one that we still need very much today. This is good news. Why? Because once we understand how the ego functioned in our ancient past, we can recalibrate it so it will better serve us today. In the realm of evolutionary psychology, there is the idea of instinct mismatch. Our instincts were calibrated for a world that was much, much different than the world we live in today. Take hunger, for example. Way back in the day when our hunger instinct was calibrated, getting food was difficult, dangerous, time-consuming, and never certain. So those who had a stronger hunger instinct tended to survive better. Why? Those who had a stronger desire to eat were more motivated to actually go out and find something to eat. This is why today in our modern world it is very, very difficult, almost impossible, to lose weight simply by willpower. Ego management is kind of the same thing. It's a lot easier in one aspect, but a little bit more difficult in another aspect. The difficult part is that for eating, for example, if you overeat, you know. It's kind of hard to eat and then pretend that you aren't eating. But the ego is a very slippery entity. It does a very, very good job of hiding itself from us. We'll see why in a minute. But first, we need to take a detour into the idea of the selfish gene. This book, The Selfish Gene, written by Dawkins, is considered to be one of the most influential science books in the past 100 years. Basically, it says that animals, including us, don't have genes that drive us to take care of other people. We have genes that drive us to take care of ourselves. But, and this is the kind of difficult part to wrap your brain around, the only animals that ever survive are ones that are both selfish, but they also live with other animals where there is a degree of mutual overlapping benefit, a kind of overlapping selfishness. When this happens between two different species, they call it co-evolution. And there are countless examples of this in nature. Probably the easiest one to think about are bees and flowers. The bees think they are getting free nectar from the flowers. The flowers think they are getting a free pollination service from the bees. Both think they are only satisfying their own selfish needs. But nature has set it up in a way so their mutual selfishness, which is overlapping, helps out both of them. Now, what does this have to do with the ego? Without going into much detail, we will define the ego as a measuring and projecting tool. We do things that help other people, and those other people are very pleased that we helped them. So they give us a lot of positive and public social validation. This feels good. This pleases our ego. On the other hand, suppose we did something that harms other people in some way. Then they give us public and negative social validation. That makes us feel bad. So based on ancient hunter-gatherers, the ego was a very useful tool to make sure we did everything we could to help others. And we did everything we could to avoid hurting others. So what kinds of things would get you some positive ego validation? Taking down or being in charge of the taking down of a big animal. Finding a fresh source of water, chasing away a tiger that tried to sneak into your cave at night. Now, here's where it gets a bit confusing both to think about and to kind of talk about in modern society. This is an idea that isn't going to be very popular, but here we go. Consider a tribe of ancient humans. It's a commonly accepted idea that humans back then lived in hierarchies. Now, how specifically did they figure out who was on top of those hierarchies and who wasn't? We will suggest that it was directly correlated to the value provided to the tribe by each individual, namely in the amount of calories produced. An easy way to think about this is by looking at an individual's production, the number of calories they acquired, and their consumption, the amount they consumed. Imagine an ancient hunter-gatherer who barely found enough food to feed themselves. They didn't provide very much food to other people, so they didn't get a lot of social validation from those other people. Now consider a guy who was a stone-cold killer. Every day he'd take down a couple buffalo or something. He produced far more than he consumed, which meant he provided to the tribe a lot of calories. So he got, in response from the tribe, a lot of social validation. So one way to think about hierarchy is we can say that the social status of any hunter-gatherer was highly correlated to their average production minus their average consumption. If they only consumed what they produced, they wouldn't get a lot of love. But if they were always producing far more than they consumed, they'd get a lot of respect and admiration from their tribe. So now we can define the ego in these terms: an internal device that would drive competition between people to see who could be the best at providing for others to get the fantastic status and admiration in exchange. Every hunter-gatherer was driven by their ego to want to be the best. They wanted to get the most respect and admiration from the tribe. Notice this is very similar to what General Napoleon said, that men will die for ribbons. Men will do anything to win the admiration of their peers. This is the human ego. A very useful tool back then and a very useful tool today. However, just like our hunger instinct, our ego instinct is getting yanked all over the place today. A healthy expression of the ego feels fantastic: to do something that benefits others and in exchange receive a lot of positive social validation. On the other hand, trying to satisfy your ego without first benefiting others is kind of like eating junk food. It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't really add up to any long-term health. Now, how do you manage your ego? It's pretty simple. In fact, it's a lot easier than managing your hunger. You'll never feel good when you're hungry, but when you cultivate and strengthen your genuine ego, nothing feels better. Do something that generally benefits others and simply enjoy their appreciation. This is a healthy expression of your ego. This is proof that you are capable of improving the state of the world, that you matter. On the other hand, if you try to get your ego satisfied on social media or by bragging about accomplishments that really didn't benefit the people that you're bragging to, that's more of a junk food ego. If you try to measure yourself by your own imagination of yourself and not by the direct feedback from others that benefit from your actions, then your ego is playing tricks on you. The stereotypical puffed up ego is the person who feels full of themselves, but without first providing value to others and receiving the automatic and positive social validation in exchange. Social validation that does not come as a response to previously provided value is empty. But social validation that comes in response to genuinely appreciated value given by you feels fantastic. A well-calibrated ego is a necessary and valuable human function. Your ego is the thing that drives your ambition, the part of you that makes you dream of doing great things and helping a great many people so you can get great rewards. Embrace your ego. Appreciate your ego. Cultivate your ego. Every great thing that was ever invented was invented by somebody who was driven by that same desire to do something magnificent, something that helps out humanity in some way to get the financial, social, and emotional rewards. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment. For more information, please visit mindpersuasion.com.